that's it. Being Asian American gives you even more heart and soul because you had to go through things that other people didn't. You're willing to stand rejection, stand the pain, and be like coming out a winner.
Hi, Unconventional Asians. I'm your host, Clover, a flight attendant turned podcast host. Every week, we interview unconventional Asians to bring you their wisdom on how they live life on their terms. If you want to be inspired, then subscribe to the channel now. I'm so excited to introduce to you our guest, Jackie Howe, and she's the perfect example of an unconventional Asian who really embraces all her unique qualities and live life and own it. This led her to so many different opportunities. She's a baker, she's an author, she's a boxer, she is a model, she's a producer, among many other things, and she's living in LA. Most important of all, she has so much wisdom that we can't wait to share with you in this episode. She lives in a way that really inspires us to embody self-love.
I want to actually be a model, like an archetype of a person that you just look at her and be like, wow, she does whatever she wants, makes her feel alive, and she's like making herself whole. Like it's all, like I found out that it was like about self-love.
How she sees boxing as a metaphor for life.
You can take it out on like your sparring partner, but they don't really represent, they're not like your enemy. They represent what you don't like about yourself.
She uses the term model baker as a metaphor for her to put her broken pieces together that she has forgotten and to really bake and transmute into this beautiful masterpiece that she is today.
Well, baking for me is like a huge metaphor for everything because, you know, people talk about energy, and the first law of thermodynamics is that energy cannot be created nor destroyed, it's just transmuted. So that's exactly what baking is. Yeah, and like I found baking also through heartbreak. And I don't know how many times I got my heart broken in order to bake things that I have.
So without further ado, let's get right into the deep conversations that we had regarding being raised in a single parent household, how being an independent woman can have its drawbacks, her really heartwarming story of her roots being Vietnamese-American, and the importance of doing inner work.
It's interesting that you're pretty much the example of what it is that you can do whatever you like, that the job title doesn't define you because you're a model and a baker. So how did that come about?
It's funny, modeling came first, and it's something I've never actually thought of going into.
Okay.
Yeah, but I went through a terrible breakup in college, and I was like, you know, I need to get my sexy back somehow. And I started to go to the gym, just, you know, working on my mental health. And it's funny because I was working as an insurance coordinator at like a student health wellness center. And so I had a really strong supportive team, like just saying, you know, getting me through the breakup. And so I was walking on campus one day and a student hands me a flyer, like, you should audition for the spring fashion show, which only comes once a year. I'm like, okay, why not? Low stakes. It's not like I'm gonna, you know, suddenly get discovered, you know, but I just want to do that for myself and learn how to catwalk. And it turns out I naturally can do that.
Wow.
So I, you know, I'm like, okay, I got some spice in me, all right. And I got into the show, and then I got into, like, and then the next year I got into it again. And this time there was like a model director, and they said, hey, my agency is looking for models. And I went into my friend's studio, took some pictures, and out of like 300 photos, the agency chose one. And I was like wearing dark, like purple lipstick, and I got a private meeting, and I got signed that day. Like,
wow.
It happened so fast because I've heard horror stories of like models trying to do open calls, and you have to go to every agency at a specific hour on like a random Thursday, and then they just scan you pretty much. I'm like, nah, bye. I was like, the whole rejection, you know, up front like that kind of intimidated me. But once I got into it, I went through thousands pretty much of auditions, and every single one, it's like, okay, you don't want me? Cool. Let me just do my thing, get out of there. And during that whole process, I had to lose like 2 inches off my waist. And so I got into fitness and nutrition, like a deep dive. And that's how I found baking. But I literally woke up one day, like off of my futon. I was like, I'm craving something really sweet. And I looked up like a vegan recipe because I thought, oh, that's cool. It's unconventional. I don't have to use milk, butter, or eggs. Cool, let me try this recipe. Did not go well at all. I don't know how I ruined it, but I did. And then I realized, oh, I can't follow directions. So let me just try to do stuff on my own. And I experimented for like an hour, like every day after work, after going to the gym. And turns out I'm actually not bad at it. And I just kept going. And then it like snowballed from there. I just got interested in food so much that in that same year that I was broken up with, I also moved to New York. Like I destroyed my life in LA. I just packed up 2 bags and left. And I even tried to go to like the French Culinary Institute in Manhattan, but that was like $45,000 for 6 months, which I couldn't afford. I just moved there. But like it really, I was like pretty serious about learning things. I ate my way through New York too. And so I just learned all my flavor profiles and connected with like chefs. And I even did a little runway in New York too. So it's like a whole, like 2014, 2016 were like the pivotal years of like model baker. I was like, oh, but then that term or that title, I guess, changed. Like it, as I grew as a person, I think, yes, I'm a model and I'm a baker, but together it was just like, I want to actually be a model, like an archetype of a person that you just look at her and be like, wow, she does whatever she wants, makes her feel alive, and she's like making herself whole. Like it's all, like I found out that was like about self-love. And I took all the pieces of my like broken heart and tried to like put things back together. And like, now I'm writing a story based on those experiences into like a memoir / cookbook. Because like, yeah, my first love was actually English literature. Go figure.
Wow.
In college, my mom was like, so you're gonna be a doctor, you're gonna be pre-med? I'm like,
the typical Asian parents' expectation, yeah.
Yeah, lawyer, I don't know. I was like, I don't think so. I think I'm just gonna choose English literature because that's where my heart is. Okay. And I actually also did some theater acting too. And I'm still doing acting right now. And it's funny because it took my parents a long time to accept that. Because I really thought I was going to go into pre-med. I wanted to be an obstetrician to deliver babies. I love babies. But I just figured that I'm such an empath that I don't have the emotional capacity to hold all those emotions in because it just made me so sad. And it's maybe like, I thought about it, it's like maybe a selfish thing, but if I can't hold that type of energy for people, I don't know how I can, even serve back myself and to keep going. Like, that's why I do admire healers and doctors in that way. And it's funny because now I'm technically a healer going into Reiki. It's a different type of healing. Okay.
Wow, that's just so much things to unpack right there. Like, it's just, well, wait a second. Okay, let me just summarize this very quickly. So you started off as a model, and then you became interested in baking because of the whole healthy aspect of it. And then you got into Reiki because you're an empath, right? You could feel people's energy and everything. And then also you have all these skill sets of being a writer, being, I guess, also a producer as well, right? Being an actor. It's just like, wow, the total package. And it's possible to be the total package. And I saw on your Instagram, you're also a boxer and you're into like the whole mindfulness and everything. That's crazy. So again, just to show like the world that it is possible to do everything that you want to do. And we don't have to be boxed in one stereotype, which is so stereotypical for an Asian female, right?
Yeah.
And so what do you think it's a common theme among like boxing versus mindfulness actually? Because there must be some overlapping lessons within that. And can you share with us some lessons you've learned?
What I found through boxing, it's like boxing is a huge metaphor for a life. It's a moving meditation. And I think the physical, like the mental struggles we go through, it translates into like a physical, needs a physical outlet. And in your heart, like if you know you're a fighter, like and you're trying to exert that type of energy in a safe way, I feel like boxing is the greatest thing that's ever happened for me. Because you can take it out on the bad. You can take it out on like your sparring partner, but they don't really represent, they're not like your enemy. They represent what you don't like about yourself or what you want to compete with. Yeah. And I think I've always had a fighter's mentality too. Like through all the things that I've ever done, anything that incubates me in a pressure cooker, like, with people, like different personalities, like different pressures, anxieties, I'm just like, I got to really roll with the punches. So, and someone also put it beautifully, like adaptability is survival, and that's a fighter's mentality. And I always find that with all, like, you have to learn and adopt different skill sets, especially like through life. You want to figure yourself out. And so, sometimes I'll box in the kitchen just to get things moving. But it really is the greatest sport, because when they say about shadow boxing, you're just like fighting the air, and you have to like face a mirror to like fight yourself and go through the different, the basic punches. I feel like people feel awkward around that because they have to confront themselves, like really. And not a lot of people do that in real life, especially when they want to find some things to blame, but they never like look within.
Yeah.
So
that's beautiful, because that's interesting, because like I've never seen or think of boxing that way. It's true. It is about confronting yourself, especially when you're looking at yourself in the mirror. And actually meditation is the same thing. You're actually confronting your own thoughts. It's just the physical manifestation of it versus the mental part of it, which eventually morph into one, right? That is so beautifully said. Now I'm going to start doing shadow boxing. I'm inspired by you. That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
I actually have a similar dichotomy too, because I was in the military. I was in the Canadian military for just a year. And then I went into the whole meditation thing as well, with like the 10-day silent meditation, the Vipassana retreat that I did. And so I like totally understand like what you mean, that the mental aspect of it, it's the beginning part of everything, right? Like you need to have that healthy foundation in order to manifest everything in your life. And at least the analogy of like being in the military, you have to have a lot of strength, because it's very painful. It's like you need a lot of discipline, right? You have to work as a team, and all those thoughts in your head that can sabotage you, if you don't calm it or know how to navigate through it, then you're going to be defeated, right? So I guess it kind of translates that into boxing as well. Anything that's, I guess, physical that is painful, you have to first deal with it in your head first.
Exactly.
Beautifully said. Yeah.
Beautifully said.
That's awesome that we share like something similar, I guess.
Yeah, I love psychology. I love philosophy. I love self-transformation.
Yes.
Because it really does. It's a huge, baking for me is like a huge metaphor for everything. Because, people talk about energy, and the first law of thermodynamics is that energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It's just transmuted. So that's exactly what baking is. Yeah. And like, I found baking also through heartbreak. And I don't know how many times I got my heart broken in order to bake the things that I have to keep going. But yeah, and then through that, I was like, okay, let me fight too, because this is my way of fighting. This is my way of healing. Yeah. And then there's different ways of doing it, but I love what you've experienced too. I actually considered going to the Navy at one point.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I also can't do that because I lacked the discipline at the time. I didn't know what I was going to do.
Right. But then I'm sure you do have it in you though, because I'm not the strongest person. I'm not the most disciplined person. Like, it sounds crazy that it's like, whoa, you're in the Army, you're in the Navy. But really, like, once you get there, it's one day at a time. Like, it's hard. But if you've done boxing, you've done all these things in your life, I'm sure you can do it as well. Yeah, it's just really about mental resilience. But we will fall, we will hurt, we will, you know, go through painful periods. It's just, yeah, like just one day at a time. That's the best advice I can give you.
No, I completely agree, because like we only have the day, we only have the now. And it's like we can do everything to try to control the future, but we don't, even the future is uncertain, it's not made yet. It's like what we have right now.
Yeah. I guess is that I was gonna say it's very relevant to today's, like what's happening right now, right? It's very scary, like for a lot of people, because in every way possible you can think of, it's very uncertain what's going to happen, like in terms of financially, like a lot of people are losing jobs, myself might be included, right? Because I'm a flight attendant, but we're like the airline industry is quite, you know, affected, and also with like your health, like physical health, that can be taken away if you know, your loved ones or yourself get hit with virus or whatever, then that we cannot take that for granted. And then family relationships that you have surrounding you. So like you said before, the like being able to adapt is so important right now, to acquire all those skills, because like, I don't know, I mean, being a doctor and being in the medical field, I guess will always be necessary, but there's pros and cons with that. It's like, then you put yourself on the line, of course, as well. But if you truly don't want to be there and you are put in that situation, then that makes you even more unhappy, right? Yeah.
Yep. And again, if you're sitting in that unhappy energy, how can you heal someone? You're gonna you're gonna actually give them that energy.
Yes.
And that's not fair. I think the integrity of your profession, whatever that you do, is of service, you know? And during this time, I felt just called to actually, like I've never felt more creative and hopeful, and just like bunkering down and giving, you know, my all into the things that I do, and utilizing all the skills I've had, like as a model, as an actor. Like there's still things that can be done in order to uplift, you know, people's spirits.
Yes.
And I am so grateful for this time, because I've also connected with my family. I've had like a estranged relationship with them ever since I moved to LA, and I've been here for 12 years. I've been fiercely independent. And you know, the closeness of Asian family is so important. And I've gotten closer to my mom, and I've looked at who I've been attracting in my life. And I actually attract a lot of single mothers, but they're like divine goddesses. They just handle their stuff like champions. And I realized that I would need to continue that relationship with my mom, even during this time, if it's the most important. And I discovered like that it's something that I've been missing, you know. And like, I know that I exude a lot of masculine energy, but I do desire like receptive feminine energy in order to heal. So I think family and friends and connection right now is so important. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's going on right now, but you only have control of your own life. And there are people that are still thriving. So take that as like a hopeful example, you know, because there's something about, it's like as if they hack the matrix. They create a certain reality where they're insulated from all the like the supposed pain and suffering. But in that way, they're still able to give back to, you know, society. They're holding it down. So that's where I'm at. And, you know, I'm just very, very grateful.
Yeah, that's amazing. Actually, can you talk a little bit about your cultural background, since you're just talking about family, so then the audience can get a little bit of a context?
Yeah, so I grew up in a family of musicians, ironically enough. My dad was in a band called the Atlantic Brothers. They'd always do like the Vietnamese weddings and entertainment showcases. My mom was the lead singer, one of them, and she was like the best singer out of all of them. Sorry, aunts, but I gotta get to mom. And they've, you know, I was born, my mom had me when she was like 20, so very, very young parents. And they always told me to be a doctor. I'm like, okay. But they actually gave me the DNA of an artist. Like, so that's where I am right now. Thanks, parents. And it was just a little chaotic. Like, there were a lot of, you know, addictions to like alcohol, to smoking, to gambling. And I think that was like part of why my parents divorced too. It just, things weren't working out. And I remember vaguely that happening. And then as I grew older, I realized like I've always had like an absent father figure. And, you know, that part definitely triggered me into figuring out what my romantic partner's like. But, you know, it wasn't traditional Asian in a sense. Traditional in the heart of like, okay, you need to make a better life. You need to live the American dream, go after, you know, be a doctor, be a lawyer, someone of status, you know. And ironically enough, they never pressured me so much. I just was still trying to figure things out because my mom was always working. My dad was not there. I had to like raise myself pretty much. And then my mom had my brother and my sisters, my twin sisters. And I was pretty much like the second mom too. And, you know, I always felt like I'm always in the position to help. I never knew how to help myself. I always knew how to help others growing up. And so it took a long time, you know, being a child of divorced parents, of like multiple, like just seeing my mom go through different unfulfilling relationships, like that broke my heart. And, you know, I'm just still navigating that. But one thing I'm really am grateful for is that I've never felt like I wasn't ever truly good enough. I think I was always hard on myself. You know, my mom always wanted me to be happy. She's definitely progressive as an Asian mom. But like the strain of having to try to connect back to like your own culture, like being Vietnamese, I'm still grasping like, okay, this is who I am. And I want to learn about my heritage. I want to go back to that, you know, it's always been a distant thing. And I realize as I'm older, I really do want to hold on to that so that I can give it to my daughter in the future. So that's why I want to rebuild my relationship with my mom too, and the women in my family in general. Because I think I'm the one that comes out as like, oh, I am the point person, you know, of inspiration. Like they always look at me what I'm doing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so beautiful. Actually, again, there's quite a bit of parallel between our story as well. Because my parents were divorced as well. And then I was raised by a single father, however. But then their values are very different. They're completely opposite. In fact, my mom is the progressive one, and then my dad, it's the traditional one, right? But because I was raised like between the two values, I was always torn in between them. It's like, which one should I choose? And then like that whole identity crisis, and being an immigrant myself, because I moved to Canada when I was 13. So not like, you know, I wasn't born there. And that whole identity itself is another, you know, confusion, right? Among growing up with completely opposite values. So I definitely resonate with you in terms of like your experience. Part of why that you start being distant with your mom, like what was the reason why you start like kind of like having issues with the relationship?
I think part of it is that I think I was actually a little jealous when I was in my teenage years, you know, because I was in a school where there were very little examples of like what an Asian American person was like. And I was always comparing myself to like the popular girls, you know, because they're beautiful and popular. And my mom is actually like, she is a beauty queen. Like she's so beautiful. Everyone just is like, is that your mom? I'm like, yeah. And I always felt like the frumpy one, you know? So I always resorted back to studying and fulfilling that cliche of like the frumpy, ugly duckling that didn't know that she was a swan. Because it never occurred to me that if my mom is beautiful, then technically I got some of her genes too. And, you know, hello. But yeah, I just didn't know how to handle that, because she was like the first woman that I had to compare myself with, and that's hard because she's close to home. That and you know, I just think that her attention wasn't always there because she's still, and I love her unconditionally. Like this is just a frame of how, you know, I was at when I was a teenager. I think she still is a young mom. She wants to live her life, and like I don't think she meant to have me, And it's not like she regrets or anything. It just happened. And so she wasn't ready to be such a young mom. She had so much to explore and travel. And she still is like young at heart, which I love because I can relate to her right now on that. But I just never was able to connect to her emotionally because I didn't have this like the same experience that she had to suffer, you know, like a broken heart, broken marriage. There were a lot of things I can relate to her on because I was always in school too. I wanted to, in a way, I didn't want to be home. I just wanted to study and like make new friends, make some kind of life for myself, you know, outside of home. And I enjoyed school so much anyway. Yeah, she was also always working. So I managed to work around her schedule and always support her in that way. You know, I think I was 16 when I realized my mom is her own person. Like I can't, and it felt like though, because she was such a young mom, I felt like I had to be the parent. And she said that to me once before. Like, why do you act like the mom? I'm like, Ma, I think I had to because there was no one else around. And I'm like, but I got your back.
It's difficult, like because that was the same thing for me. Like I almost have to be like the parents for my parents because I always was the messenger, right? And I think that hurts us so much in adulthood because now we do not cherish ourselves, and that's why the whole self-love thing was hard, was difficult, and it manifests into problems with our own relationships when we are older, right? It's like, oh, because well, in my case, then I become a pushover, or you know, become passive aggressive because I'm not able to voice my needs because then I always have to cater to other people's needs first, and not having a model of what it's like to be unconditionally loved and accepted by your parents, that you are safe and secure without needing to prove yourself. Because like I think almost like when we have to be the parent for our parents, then you don't have a support system. It's like, if you don't take care of yourself, nobody else will. So that whole independence thing, for me at least, I don't know if you resonate with that as well. It's like strong.
Yeah, every single time it's like I have trouble asking for help because there's a default thought like, okay, if they don't help me, I gotta do it myself, it's fine. And it's like, it's like so quick. It's like a reflex. And I'm like, Jackie, you gotta slow down. I think at this point, you've done so much work for yourself. You can let people in. You can let people in.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think in that way, like, that sense of independence being so strong, I think it's also like a defense mechanism too. Because I think it's for people who've raised themselves with, you know, in a single parent household, it's hard for them to accept like a trust that other people can take care of them, because we don't want to be hurt. No, and we don't want to face rejection, disappointment, and hopelessness and disgust all over again. But it's like, that's, you know, you gotta accept that people will disappoint you, but not in the ways that are like, you know, life or death in some cases. But it's just like they're their own person too. They have stuff going on. And just, you know, you have to respect that.
Yeah. I
just
think it's like, it's like finding that balance. I think it's still important to exert our own independence because we are that own person. We are responsible for our own feelings, for our own emotions, for our own shadows. But at the same time, letting other people in when they are seeking help and they want to help you, right? It's like, how do we have both and have that balance of like, you can have this beautiful relationship together where you're interdepending on each other instead of codepending on each other because that's out of need, instead of want and desire to want to add to someone else's life instead of needing someone else to be in your life. I think there's a distinction, and a lot of strong women forget that sometimes. And for men with that masculine energy, if we're too masculine, that can turn them off too, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think what I've had a lot of guys tell me that I'm too much, and I'm like, honestly, I'd rather be too much than too little, because I have so much life to sustain here, and like, I don't want to be boring. And I took it so personally with this one person that I was like shifting my whole value system and life around that one thing. I'm like, you shouldn't do that, because that means that person wasn't ready for you at all. And like, passion is such a rare thing too. And it's such a beautiful thing to see. Like, don't you want to see someone light up? Like, oh, you are an example of the level that I want to be at. But there's some people who are choosing, to want you to be at their level. And I'm like, no.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you have to find someone at your level, right? Like, who understands you, who celebrates and love all the qualities that you have, because that is so admirable. Like, all the things that you do, it's like, it's crazy, because like, not only are you intellectual, because you're like philosophical and in the wisdom time realm, but also like you're a model, you're a boxer, you're like all these things that can be like intimidating for some guys, but that just means that they're not the right one for you, because the confident ones won't feel intimidated. I hope not. right guys.
I think it's just so funny, because talking about divine masculine, divine feminine energy, I think it's that balance though. I cherish so much. That's why I'm like more conscious of it now. Like, I know that I want to work on my divine feminine and like healing my own sacral chakra, where the creativity, the fertility lies, the sexuality. Also, sexuality is another thing that a lot, like Asian families do not talk about.
No.
Because like, whoa. No,
I don't want to hear this. Too much information.
No. And I'm like, it's like parents, you had to feel something in order to make me. So let's deal with that.
Don't pretend that didn't happen.
No. Yeah, I know you. I know that you experience loneliness and lust, and you want that passion too. It's okay. It's okay. So, and I'm still definitely working on my, again, divine feminine, because it's one, like, through that lens, you can recognize the divine masculine and not be afraid of it. When we were talking about sense of independence too, that's divine masculine energy. If you have so much of it, you're also barred from seeing the divine feminine in a man. Be like, he's actually an example of a healthy spirit, a healthy relationship, someone that receives you, And so I'm trying to figure that out too, because the thing that keeps sticking in my mind is that I want to be able to heal my generational trauma so that I don't have to pass it on to my daughter or my son. Well, I'm pretty sure I'm going to have a daughter and a son. But it wouldn't be fair for them to experience what I experienced, because it takes a lot of work. Like, you carry all those childhood traumas through adulthood. People are still in their 50s, still dealing with it.
Or older.
Mm-hmm. Or older. And you actually, I've seen, it's a great time right now for Asian American narratives, through film. Right now, like, I watched Tiger Tail, I watched, the half of it, and Kim's Convenience, like, those the fun Canadian shows too. And that helped me frame, like, oh, no matter what, like, if you're 60, you're still gonna have like a really difficult relationship with your own children if you ignore the things that have bothered you and not be able to talk about it, or repressed emotions. Like, the subconscious is such a powerful thing. And like, that's why we have these beautiful stories. So they're tragic. Like, you can relate to them so much, like, like strained mother-daughter, father-daughter, father-son relationships. And I think the Asian American experience, like, I was meditating on that the other day, and especially right now, during COVID-19, like, we're kind of like a scapegoat for all, like, the dormant, like, just the xenophobia. And it's just, I'm a little bothered by it right now. Sorry.
No, for sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. It's not fair. Yeah.
No, it's not. And a part of me was like really worried for my parents, and they're so far away from them. But luckily, I haven't attracted any experiences that would, say otherwise, and neither have them. It's great. But anyway, you know, it's so weird. I've never like bunkered down on like the fact that, okay, I am Asian American, and like there's a pride in it now. And I was like, still, it was even part of like a small shame too, especially in my romantic relationships. I felt like I couldn't own, you know, and that's, I think, was also like part of the disconnect between me and my family and my sense of my.
So can you clarify that shame? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, because that being Asian was always like fetishized.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's not, and it's something that I'm like, that's not okay anymore. It's just not. Like, I could never bring myself down to that level to have someone objectify me that way in order to seek validation as a human being. I don't use, like, that's not a thing you use against me and to me as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's like some hidden, like I was working through that hidden shame of not owning my Asian Americanness because of that objectification through my personal relationships. And I was like, wow, I'm so happy that that's over and that I'm working through it, because there's something really beautiful about our culture, you know, our sense of spirituality, our connected to the family. Like I love that connection. Like, I've seen my friends, you know, always talking to cousins and having these fun parties, you know, and gathering, like it's a constant party. And I missed that.
Yeah.
And I didn't appreciate it growing up. I just realized, wow, we hang out way too much. There's so much going on. I can't connect to these people. You know, I never let them in. So I'm working through that right now and like putting myself back in the pack.
And you've been to Vietnam when you were 26, you said. So
yeah.
Did that help you with like finding yourself a little bit? Like going back to the roots type of thing?
Yeah, oh man, it was actually during Vietnamese New Year too. I can't believe it took me 26 years to get back to my mother country, but I'm glad I did.
But you did,
It was a very crucial time in my life too. And I also healed parts of my relationship with my mom through that trip. And I learned how much it's such a beautiful hustle. Like, you're talking about entrepreneurship. You see people on the street selling fruit at like 6 a.m. I hear roosters at 4:30 and like chopping outside my window. Like, I was living in my aunt's like 3-story marble house in District 4 in Saigon. And I spent a whole month in Saigon. And I say Saigon, not Ho Chi Minh City, because
I know which side you're on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm like, hello. I appreciate that everyone was just so open and so friendly. They're willing to like take you to places, and that's a normal part of life. The sharing food, sharing stories. I didn't even know that there was like Vietnamese poetry to appreciate. Like, that's how far like of a disconnect I've been, not just physically in like a different country, but just in my heart. And you know, it brought me back to like, wow, I didn't know who I was at all until that trip.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so important too to be able to understand your parents, where they come from in the first place. Like, why are they saying all these things repeatedly to you that most of the time we resist as a child? Like, if we grew up in North America, in a westernized culture, like we're trying to assimilate so that we fit in with, you know, the fellow white people, right? And so it's like the example of, oh, if you bring your own Vietnamese food as a little bento box, you know, and they might smell a little differently, and they're not, you know, the typical cheese strings or crackers that other white kids bring, then you feel shamed, right? But it's
Yeah.
like then you hide that part of you. But then until you go back to your home country and realize where that beautiful history, all of those values come from, then you, when you can truly accept who you are and what your parents have been instilling in you, I guess, right?
Yeah, I wrote a few stories, a lot of like long journal entries about how confused I was going back. And I've always had like an open sense of adventure, but that also put me in a spot where it's like, okay, I'm trying to grasp for straws now, you know, like trying to find more meaning into my experiences. And I also got not only experiencing the city as it is now, but I also went back into the country, you know, to visit like my great uncle. And I love that everyone like takes care of each other, and they're so humble about it. They don't care what you've done, where you've been, what your title is. Like they'll ask me, "What do you do over in America?" I'm like, "Well, I'm doing all of this." And they're like, "Wow," you know, and it made me feel honored that they view me in such a light. But like, I also felt humbled at the same time because they're such down to earth people.
Oh, I love
it. Like, I know, I'm gonna start crying too.
Yeah, I'm kind of an empath too, that's why I could feel it. Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and my uncle told me stories about my grandpa, and like during the Vietnam War.
Oh my God, imagine it. Yeah.
I found out that my grandfather, he had a huge amount of land, and he built like this huge mansion all on his own. Wow. With my uncle and my grandma and my mom. And I was like, I'm technically royalty, you know, because I was technically supposed to inherit that mansion that in the middle of the jungle. It's like far exotic place.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, things happened, and as soon as the war was over, my family was brought over here, and we lost the mansion. We lost the property. It was just disassembled and sold. So I don't even know where it is. And just those little snippets of my family history, I'm just finding out now. And I think I'm glad that I'm in a healing space now to just appreciate my family's history and the struggles that they have gone through. It's so easy to forget because we are privileged here. And I also found out that my grandpa, my mom's side, her dad, was like a scout in the Vietnam War, and he was detained by the North when the South was taken over and put into a re-education camp. Never heard from him ever again. Yeah. And so yeah, I think the thing that broke me when I went back to Vietnam was when we were, you know, saying our prayers during the holiday. You're supposed to visit the graves and, you know, pay them your respects. But for my grandfather, there is nobody. There is no burial ground.
Yeah.
But I thought, as I looked around, I'm like, I think I'd rather have him just his energy dispersed in the air, just in the world somehow. Yeah. Instead of just in the ground, you know.
Yeah.
I think that's the way I would want to go.
Yeah. It's true. It's how you see it too, right? Like it's just a symbolism in terms of how you get buried. And I guess that's where the adaptability comes in, right? It's like, well, what can you do with the situation? The body's not there. Then it's like, well, then how can you make this a beautiful memory for them, right? And being scattered in the air, it's even more beautiful because now you're one with the universe, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So totally. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Sorry, I made you cry.
No, thank you. I think I was on the verge anyway. It's great. I appreciate this so much.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm glad.
yeah.
Yeah.
Also, my uncle told me he was a boxer.
Oh, no way. Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Runs in family.
I guess so.
Yeah. So I saw a pattern, which is interesting because I feel like you're very resilient, independent, adaptable. That actually comes from like the Vietnamese culture. Because that's what I see. Like when I went to Vietnam last year for the first time, I went to north to south, and it's like everybody's like that. It's like everybody's very entrepreneurial, very tough because of what has happened to them is I can't fathom like and the fact that they're so very optimistic, they're so very happy, they're so very I guess receiving. It's very family oriented, very collective, and that's just the beautiful thing about Vietnamese culture that I see in you. And then also genetically you have all these artistic expressions as well, and you're the boxer. So I think like just understanding all of that together, it really just paint a picture of who you are and how beautiful, like like all those qualities that you should cherish, and I'm sure you are.
Thank you. Again, I'm very grateful.
Oh, it's amazing. It's great. And now it's like the question, how do we actually kind of merge the superpower of being an Asian and being an American, right? It's like now well, all these sacrifices that your family made for you to move, to America for, the American dream to have a better life. It's like, okay, how can we use that, all these qualities, like in an individualistic society, and combining with all the beautiful qualities that you have as a Vietnamese, and make that into a unique combination that nobody else can have, right? And that's like your superpower.
Yeah, and everyone has that superpower of being able to integrate.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's part of the whole spiritual mindfulness practice too, which it's funny. I admire Thich Nhat Hanh.
Yeah.
He's like the world's most renowned monk, Vietnamese. Hello. And reading his works, like everything is about integration, and you have to let the pain in, so that you don't have to suffer anymore. And suffering is an ingredient too. So everything goes back to baking. And just because I put together myself this way, I have so many broken pieces of myself that I wanted to put back together. It's not like I'm a broken person. It's just like I just forgot a lot of the pieces that I had. And I think being Asian American, like that's such a unique ingredient. That's to me, and for everyone else too. And everything else that's happened in your life around that, like you have to integrate.
I love that. That's beautifully said. Yeah, it's so true. Instead of rejecting it, because a lot of times that's what we're doing, right? And then it's like, no, wait a second, that's like your gifts, that's your strengths. Like, no, don't deny them. But we've been trying to fit in so hard in the American culture, or even like me being kind of like half, like a hybrid. It's like I feel such a disconnect with like my really Asian people, or a disconnect with like the very Caucasian people. Then it's like, where am I? But how about I can just be wherever I want to be, like this very unique space of like, yes, I am the hybrid, and own it, right? And so for everybody out there, it's like, doesn't matter where you are, who you are. It's just like, no, like we have to celebrate our uniqueness, right?
Yeah, celebrate it every day, every moment. Like,
yeah.
Life is so short. Life is so short.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I guess let's just talk about something lighter. How is it actually like being an Asian American in the fashion industry? Because that's like another whole story in itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's been so progressive. I had like really short hair way back. It was like the Asian just look, that bob, it's strong, enhanced all of my features. I'm like, okay, that's cool. Again, it didn't occur to me that being Asian was such a unique thing in the fashion industry until I was made to be different. And every single time I get a casting breakdown, it's like, oh, unique look. I'm like, okay, so am I attractive in a really weirdly or unattractive way? Is that a nice way to say that? I don't know. It's a whole nother thing. But
doesn't matter.
No,
you're chosen among the 300 pictures. There's a reason, hey.
Exactly. And so I'm like, okay, that makes me unique. Let me just own it then. And I've just seen a lot of progression in the fashion industry and in integrating Asian stories in Asian face. Like there were many times where I was just chosen because I'm the cool looking Asian. I'm like, okay, let me just own that. Or the badass looking Asian for acting. I'll own that. Why not? I may not know martial arts that well, but let me just own the fact that you appreciate me for this right now. But it's funny because being Asian American, like they assume that you're waif-like, you know, like you're super thin and long, gorgeous, voluminous hair. Like I got none of that. I have curves.
Which is beautiful.
Thank you. I am athletic. I don't fit into that box either. Like I don't know how many boxes I don't fit in, especially in the fashion industry. But
well, not just fashion wise, but literally everything in your life, basically, you don't fit into that box, which is amazing.
Yeah, that's
why you're on Unconventional Asians.
I'm very grateful for my agency too, to like still like keep me out there, you know, making me show up, because this is exactly who I am. I mean, I am Asian. I have a lot of beautiful features that are aesthetically pleasing, you know, because in fashion they view you as an art. And I appreciate that. I never really wanted to truly like take on narratives where it's a negative thing to be Asian, because I've heard so many of that in the fashion industry. And yes, like I'm so unique. So again, let me just own that, you know. And even though there are moments where they dress me up as like a China doll, I'm like, oh, I'm actually wearing my heritage.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
It's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that is
like,
so amazing.
Yeah, it's my way of like just being connected again to my heritage. I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
You brought that back to me in America. So it's just been great. I've worked with so many great artists and actors, and I've been in really cool commercials. And I don't know, there's just so much more to say about that.
Yeah.
It's so fun. It's so fun. I've been dressed as something really like feminine and masculine and really like cool and hip hoppy. I'm like, I get to mold myself into different people's visions. So
that is cool. So cool. I love that. I would love to try that. Like, just to have that experience of being a different person like all the time with different outfits and makeup and everything, right? Yeah. That brings it back to your adaptability.
You're right.
What sign are you?
I'm an Aries.
Okay. I was like, are you because I'm a Gemini, so I'm like, that sounds like a Gemini. It's like changing all the time. Yeah.
Well, my Venus and my Mars are both in Aquarius, so I'm very
that makes sense. Okay. Yeah.
Unconventional in my intellectualization of everything. But what was I gonna say? Oh, that's why I love acting so much, because you get to put yourself in so many different stories and so many shoes, and being Asian American is also one of them, which is great. I can do that, you know. And I recently finished watching Hollywood on Netflix, and Anna Mae Wong is one of the main characters in it. And when she accepted her Oscar, sorry if I'm spoiling for anyone, sorry. And she's like, you know, you're recognizing me for not just being, I'm not a caricature. Like, I'm a woman of heart and soul. I cried so hard at that. Imagine one day I'll hold my Oscar and say the same thing.
Yeah.
But that really hit me too. I'm like, that's it. Being Asian American gives you even more heart and soul, because you had to go through things that other people didn't. You're willing to stand rejection, stand the pain, and be like, coming out a winner.
I love it. Oh my God. That's the Oscar speech that you're going to have. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was amazing. That's going to be like the highlight of our video.
You come out a winner.
Yeah, there you go. It's true. So yeah, just to wrap this up, because like, oh, there's so many just nuggets of wisdom in this episode. It's crazy. Like it just, but I think the gist of it, it's just owning yourself for who you are, leaning into it, that we're really special, because we are, right, in a very unique way, because we have like a very interesting mix of two different cultures who seemingly completely opposite, but at the same time, at the end of the day, we're all human. Like we all do have that heart and soul. Instead of labeling us a certain way, stereotyping us into a certain, I guess, whatever that you think we are, that limit us from achieving our true potential. A lot of times it's like we don't, because we confine ourselves from what the society tells us, and when we can break off from that mold and be unconventional and step out of the comfort zone and be us, that's when like true happiness is found. So thank you so much for the amazing interview, that we cry our hearts out and be authentic with, like the audience, because like that, it's being vulnerable and authentic, it's like part of the brand, and we know that you will be able to bring that to our show, so we're just really grateful for you.
Thank you.
And I'm sure our audience have found so much insight from this and being so inspired by you. Yeah.
Thank you.
So we'll say bye to our audience for now. Until next time, we'll see you on the next episode of Unconventional Asian.
Wasn't that an amazing episode? We want Unconventional Asians to be really a community where we can share stories and conversations that we had no opportunities to. So we value your feedback and insight just as much as ours. We're nobody better than anybody. We're all here together just to figure this out, to be authentic as much as possible. So we really appreciate if you have anything to share, and definitely let us know in the comment section below of any topics that you would wish that somebody talked about but nobody did, and we're here for you to do that. Give us a like if this episode really resonates with you, and definitely share this video with your family and friends, because there's so much wisdom in this episode. I'm sure that would benefit every one of us. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for our weekly videos, and until next time, Unconventional Asians, dare to be authentic. Join our community at Unconventional Asians on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube to hear more.